Well, the growth trends to watch in 2023. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. So if you are attending by one of our live stream channels, please let Dana Kramer know. She'll be managing the chat in those channels. So let us, she'll be entering questions in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. So we're going to get kicked off. I'm Kathy Steele. I'm the CEO of Red Caffeine, and I'm your host today. And so for those of you unfamiliar with Red Caffeine, we are a growth consultancy, and it's our mission to build badass brands that people want to work for and with. And so we love to focus our conversations with clients on what their best opportunity is for growth. And so today, these are some of the growth lane options that we talk about helping our clients build the right strategy in. And but sometimes that can be pretty daunting. There's a lot of different choices on this menu. So we help companies build a strategy to accelerate growth by evaluating what path is best for their business. And our offering includes a managed service team that enables a business to scale rapidly without making a wide variety of hiring full-time team members. And as we all know, in this challenging talent economy, that can be pretty beneficial. So today we'll be talking about many of these growth lanes because we're going to be talking about some big topics. We are going to touch on sales-focused topics like organic growth channels and expanding your sales channels, as well as launching a new product or service. We're going to talk about the hottest topic in every CEO fishbowl I've been in recently. What's on the mind of most leaders today is their talent strategy. And then we also be touching on the technology you'll need to optimize growth in sales and hiring. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our experts today. We are joined by Lynn Fayoumi, and if you are a regular visitor and watcher of our webinar series, you will recognize Lynn. Lynn is the president and CEO of HR Source, and they're a Chicago-based employer association with over 1,200 member organizations. So she sees everything. She's a highly respected speaker, trainer, advisor, and authority on various workplace issues, including culture, employment trends, and HR management. She's also a prolific writer, quoted and published regularly in various industry publications, and she is the past chair of the board of directors and association forum of the Chicagoland and the Employer Association of America, and she currently serves as on the World of Work board of directors. So very busy person. So I'm sure those are some of the factors that got her recent recognition by Crane Chicago Business. She's been recognized as a notable leader in HR. Welcome back, Lynn.
Thanks, Kathy.
Another frequent guest on our webinar series is Tom Latourette, and Tom is the managing partner at M3 Learning. So M3 works with companies as large as Google and WebEx to entrepreneurial startups. Their solutions change the way your sales teams will interact with their accounts. Their relationships will be at higher levels, they'll grow deeper and stronger, and they'll be more collaborative. The tools transform how your team communicates at every level of the business. And it will give you, the team, a framework to engage, qualify, and close more deals. Tom has been a disciple of the M3 learning process since 2000, when he was the VP of Sales and Marketing at SBR Inc. With over 26 years of marketing, sales, and sales management experience, Tom can bring a unique, real world, has done the job perspective to the M3 learning experience. Thanks for joining us today, Tom.
Oh my gosh, thanks, Kathy. I really enjoy these programs. Thanks so much.
We love having you. So, and then we have, last but not least, is Joe Gurreri, and he's a certified business performance advisor with Insperity. And Joe helps leaders prevent people problems. I love that, while accelerating performance, which I also love. Insperity is the original professional employer organization, a PEO, and Joe says he acts like a bit like a business therapist, which I love. I'm sure there's some stories to tell there. And he focuses on what keeps small and mid-sized business leaders up at night. They're people, process, and performance issues. And I think anybody that's running a company or managing people today would agree that those are some of the things that we're all challenged with. Insperity's scope encompasses the ABC2s of HR, the administration, benefits, and compliance, but the force multiplier is culture. So, welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And I always love for the audience to get to know you guys a little bit more personally. So, Mary Lynn, what's not on your bio that you can share today?
Oh, that I love to travel and I love having adventures and try to never grow old just through continuing to embrace, you know, I had a birthday this week and I'm moving up in age, but my youthful spirit remains, whether it's through my music, my hobbies, hanging out with young people, and traveling the world brings me unlimited joy.
Well, that's fabulous. Happy birthday or happy belated birthday. I
Thank you.
also am subscribing to Benjamin Button's philosophy about going backwards in age. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that age.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom, tell us something fun about you that's not on your bio.
I am a children's book author, and
Ah,
my third children's book, I Had a Rotten Tooth, about Billy Bicuspid and the Rotten Tooth Gang, who are going to hijack the Sugarland, the Candy Express at high noon, but are thwarted by Dominic the dentist and Bryson Brush. That's my third, and then Opera Baby is coming out shortly, and 100% of the proceeds of those book sales go to a foundation that my brother and I created that helps local families that are fighting cancer. The BTB Foundation has given over 1.5 million to over 100 local families, and Joe has graciously supported with his prodigious talents, probably Joe for the last 10 years. And Kathy, I know your organization has actually sponsored our events. So that's a little something about me. So
oh gosh. Well, definitely a great reminder for our Christmas or holiday shopping list. So thank you for reminding us to spend some dollars on something that's really fun for kids and a good cause. And Joe, just give us a little something about you that's not on your bio.
Okay, well, Tom suggested it a bit there. I am a vocalist, and as one of my hobbies, I am in a men's a cappella chorus called the New Tradition Chorus. For those of you in the greater Chicagoland area, there's a holiday show coming up the 3rd and the 4th of December, so we'd love to have you there. And I do this competitively. So I was in 3 competitive quartets and 2 competitive choruses over this season, just this year. So I've traveled all over the United States, had a lot of fun doing it, and it's fun to look out at the audience and see people smile when we do things the way we're supposed to and bring the chords together.
he's an
Yeah.
award winner and the best version of Blue Skies you'll ever hear in your life. So that's
I've been thrilled to hear you sing before, and
Thank
your
you.
group is just spectacular. So, well, you all really outdo my tennis and golf habits. But let's jump into the topics at hand. So, Marilyn, why don't you kick us off? So, hiring. As we're entering an economy that is truly in flux, it really feels a bit counterintuitive. But what's your thinking on being like entering 2023? Should companies grow their workforce as other organizations are starting to tighten their belt, or we're seeing some massive layoffs across certain sectors? What's your thoughts on that?
It's dangerous to start a program with an answer like, it depends. But this is truly one of those questions that it depends on your current talent, your industry, your geography, your growth potential. My optimistic self says yes, 100% yes. But for some organizations, it's not in the budget, it's not in the cards, it's not in their best interest. However, even in organizations where they are downsizing or belt tightening or having limited reductions in force, they're also going to suffer from some turnover or attrition during any year, and 2023 will probably not be any different. You have to be living under a rock to have not heard of the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, quiet firing. All of these things are going to continue into 2023. I think that's what my crystal ball shows to some extent. And so organizations, at the very least, are going to need to fill positions for critical roles where there has been some turnover. But they also need to be looking at opportunities to grow their talent. So any good leader is also a talent scout. And so we should also be looking at this opportunity when there might be some talent in the market that has been laid off, downsized, or has chosen to leave their employer because of remote work, flexibility, pay, fill in the blank. We might be able to pick up some talent that we wouldn't otherwise be able to score. And
Right.
so, generally speaking, I would say yes. Even though we're looking at an economy in flux, organizations will still be growing their workforce in smart, effective ways in order to be successful.
So well said. I love it. Joe, I'd love to hear your perspective on this topic too.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. First, you have to look at your business goals for 2023 and say to yourself, where do you need the help? So I'll give you an example. I have a client that's a mortgage organization. They don't need processors right now, but they really need originators. So look where your business is telling you to look. Make sure you're flexible enough to react right now. But you, at the same time, like Mary Lynn said, it depends. At the same time, you have to look at what is the next wave of the business cycle bringing to you. You can't cut your nose off now and get rid of all of your processors, or you won't be able to hire them when your business starts to surge. So there's that delicate balance. And I'm not saying that any business leader doesn't already know, but think about this. I think more strategically, you could use this as an opportunity to consider your succession strategy. What does it look like? How do you prepare the next leader? Maybe you have an emerging processor that could be developed during the slow time, and they might be less expensive. They might be earlier in their career. They might have a role today that doesn't garner the or earn that higher range of pay. Um, Set up a mentoring program so that if you do have to lay off, you're not losing that core tribal knowledge of what makes the business successful and unique and different. And you don't want to lose that essence of culture. So you can be strategic about it while still being compassionate. You can reapply people's skills to true business values, but you have to step a little bit farther outside of your business and look at it objectively. Sometimes it helps when you have a trusted advisor, anybody, a friend, another, someone in your Vistage group, Kathy, anybody to objectively look at it and say, did you think about this or did you think about that? But really, remember this one thing is have a deliberate succession strategy. Figure out how you're investing in people so that you're not left in the next wave fully unprepared.
Yeah.
Plus, I
No,
love, Kathy, I just wanted to add what I'm hearing from both Joe and Mary Lynn is, it's that place of taking the long view with your individuals. And, because if I train somebody to get them to that next level, boy, it sure makes it really difficult for them to want to leave me a year or two from now. If I've invested in them, they're willing to stay longer. They're going to invest with us. And even the long view of just when I attend a trade show, my eyes are always open for who are the good competitors that are out there. And maybe I just take their name, I put them in a file somewhere because you never know what's going to
Mhm.
go on 3 months, 6 months from now.
And Tom, you're pointing out a good point, and that is it's a win-win to do it this way
Yeah.
because you're investing in people and there's a win there. You're buying loyalty, very likely.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can ratchet up the performance of every single player that is
Right.
still here a little bit, I'll go back to the singing example. In a quartet, if one person is not doing well, we want to help that one person do it, or the chord ain't going to happen. Same thing with a chorus where you have 60 or 70 voices. If you have a few people that are kind of dragging it down, we need to help them bring it up, or it brings the whole performance down. When everybody does it great, it's unbelievable. And did you know that when you have four voices singing a song and they're doing it right, it creates a fifth sound, an overtone? That's what you have to strive for in your business harmony, literally. You have to have that rhythm. You have to know, and you all know it. You've seen it happen when there's that little magic in a business. That's when you've got everybody pulling in the same direction. The culture is really clear. People feel appreciated and motivated, and money isn't always the answer.
In
Yeah.
fact, money becomes maybe the third or fourth motivator, right?
That's
When
exactly
that
it. People leave supervisors and culture. They don't leave a good environment. They leave supervisors that are not good at what they're doing, or they're frustrated.
Yeah, and so that kind of leads into the next question is so then what are some of the top trends that companies should be considering as they're, maybe thinking a little bit more carefully about their hiring processes or in their organizations? Like, what are some of the trends that you guys are seeing people invest in both talent acquisition and trying to retain those top performers? Marilyn, why don't you kick us off that question?
Yeah. Well, there's a long list here. We could, spend the rest of the program on this, but I'll try to name a few and then let my friends here name a few others. But uh, overall, I think it's critical to look at your total rewards. While compensation is getting the lion's share of the attention right now because of the rate of inflation, it is critical to look at that as one ingredient in your overall compensation package. So organizations are starting to take a closer look at whether or not their traditional benefit plans are helping them to attract and retain millennials or Gen Z employees, or are they really still focused on a baby boomer or a Gen Xer? And can they make some movement in altering or adding to or revising plans that could be more attractive to a younger professional? That's one area. Another really
So,
important area.
Marilyn, could you give an
Yeah.
example? I'd love, I mean, could you
Oh,
color,
sure.
give
So
examples?
a lot of young people are saying we don't contribute to the 401k because we still have student loans to pay off.
Yeah.
So that's just one easy example. But also even looking at just within your health plans, are you offering a range of different plans that would be appealing to those who aren't that concerned yet about healthcare expenses, right? So they don't care if they have $1,000 or a $5,000 deductible as long as their monthly premiums are low because they're worried about how much money is in their paycheck every couple weeks. Another thing really important to look at is the speed at which all of your processors are working. So I've been asking leaders and HR people I interact with in fish bowls, like you mentioned before, Kathy, have you lost a candidate in the past year because you were too slow? Every single hand goes up, right? People want, right? You too.
Exactly.
Everybody has, right? Um, the same thing is true. Have you lost employees because you didn't develop them quickly enough? Joe's example was great a little bit ago about succession planning and creating opportunities to mentor and grow and develop future leaders. But the speed at which things are happening, and I know we're going to talk about technology in a little bit, but technology is one of the ways we can help move more quickly. But it breaks my HR heart when I hear people pushing back and saying the reason that they ghost employers is because employers have been ghosting them for years, which is hard to hear, but I know in the eye of the beholder, it's often true. So focus on culture is more critical than ever. Organizations are struggling to figure out what the right model is for remote, hybrid, 100%, in person. We read the headlines every day. Organizations are still trying to figure it out, and they don't necessarily have managers and supervisors who are very effective at managing in this new environment. And again, uh, people leave managers and supervisors. And so that's causing a lot of this turnover and churn and quiet quitting in the marketplace, is because we've just expected managers and supervisors to figure out how to manage and lead others in this new environment, and they're not naturally very good at it. So how do we give them the tools to make them capable of, competent at, because they could very well be the reason our organizations are not able to attract and retain all of the talent that we need for our futures.
Joe, do you have anything to add here?
I do. There's a thread of accountability. Let's use that as sort of the platform. And there's accountability on employees. Now, you want to be flexible, but you have to create a policy so that they know when they're about to cross the line of the new policy of flexibility. Flexibility doesn't mean everybody gets to do everything they want. That's not going to work for the business. And I think good employees want to do good work, and they want to know when they're about to disappoint the business or their supervisors or the owner. So with that in mind, let's assume that that's the case, that people want to do good work and that we have good people in those roles. And I should say good performers. Everybody's a good person, but good performers in those roles, that they're suited for those roles. So be flexible with policies, but clearly write what the accountability needs to be around the flexible policy so they can be accountable and you can call people out. But then also be open-minded enough to realize maybe you set a policy and it's not working, and be frank about it. And that's the other side of it. So the management and leadership team also has to be accountable to listen, to ask first, and not penalize based on an answer that they didn't like to hear. The emperor doesn't have clothes. Okay, it's not working. Let's address it. And if you don't have an answer, tell the people, we heard this issue. We recognize that this is a challenge that we have to wrestle with. We don't have an answer yet, but we're working on it. So one formal way of doing that is having employee surveys. It's usually best practice to have a third party administer the employee survey so that they could be objective and they really can say what they're thinking. We end up doing that for a lot of our clients in order to gather the information. But here's even more important. You have to report back what you discovered, and you have to talk about that in a town hall. And before you do the town hall, you better come up with a couple of ways that you're going to acknowledge you heard it and improve it. So that's where accountability is on both the employee side and on the leadership side. It's both of those things. Some of this is facilitated through technology, and then some of what you're probably going to hear is that they want more knowledge, and that's where a formal mentoring program can really be useful. And I touched on that earlier. There are other little things like education and having overall 360 health. So an employee assistance program is an example of that, where you keep people's head in the game because so many things changed at home. They still can't get their kids into school all the time because they're being sent home for a sniffle. It's just a whole different world now where you don't just tough through it when you think somebody might be ill. So maybe a health advocate program is really nice. There are a lot of medical providers that are offering that kind of service now, just letting your employees know that you care about them, you recognize that life is hard, and you're there to try to support them in the non-work things so that when they're at work, you expect them to be fully present. That's really what it's about, is accountability. It all comes back around to that. And I think reasonable-minded people, if you're delivering that message consistently, and you're holding yourself accountable as a leader, and you're telling them you are and how you want them to hold you accountable, they'll take it when you ask them to be accountable as well.
I love that. You really touched. It feels very close to home. We've did some of those things in our agency this year, and I have to say, even we were asked, like, when are we going to hear feedback on the survey? So you're exactly right. You don't send out a survey and then ghost your employees by not telling them you heard them, what you're going to do about the feedback, and obviously we can't always do everything, but it's definitely, they want to know, like, what incremental improvements you're going to make in your organization. So I think that is, you touched on a lot of really interesting things. Now, Tom, I wanted to switch gears to talk a little bit about, like, putting the right sales team from a hiring standpoint on the field. Like, what are you seeing in terms of the skill sets necessary to really modernize your sales organization today?
So I'll tell you, it's so interesting. Like, we'll talk to sales teams, and it's always, we need more leads. We need more leads. We need more leads. I was with a group yesterday, HVAC contractors, 6 salespeople, and we need more leads. And geez, it was about a week and a half before I even got a lead. And my question was, well, what percentage of your business is being generated by the company? And they were saying, oh, it's about 90 to 95%. And I was like, okay, how's that make you feel? It feels a little bit out of your control, right? I think one of the biggest things is, can we outbound? How do we create, how do really powerful salespeople today have to be able to establish relationships? They've got to be able to go into their networks and try to create opportunities in a really strong, powerful way. There's a lot of tools to be able to do that well, but we've had this reliance because business has been so good over the last 2 or 3 years, and there's been so many leads that have been generated by the company that all of a sudden, the good news is I've got a few hundred years of experience in this room, got 10 salespeople, 150 years of experience in this industry, and we've been pretty successful doing things. The bad news is we've got 150 years of experience in this,
Right.
and we have to shift our mindset. And so I think the organizations that are really successful right now are looking for salespeople that can do a lot of things. They don't react, they're proactive. How do we actually create our own opportunities? They have to be facile in learning. I think emotional intelligence is, probably the best advice I got early in my sales career was, you should take a typing class. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why? And they said, well, because you're going to have to type quickly. I would tell a salesperson now, you should take psychology classes, because really understanding the motivation of people you work with, people that you're calling on, and what it takes to actually influence others that's a tough skill. And
Super
so high
complex.
EQ is, go ahead, Kathy, what?
It's just super complex, all the personalities and really how to relate to different people in a room. So,
And
and
I
you could
think so.
really
Those
find,
are some of the things when you're looking for great salespeople. I think looking for those skills. And then, one of the golden rules that we like to employ is, you should judge a salesperson in the interview on just how well they sell themselves, because the way they sell themselves is probably going to be the way that they sell the product that they're working for. So watch that. Do they talk too much? Do they not? How many questions do they ask? What are the things that I want to see in a really strong salesperson? Are they actually showing me that in an interview setting?
yeah.
Or in
I mean,
an interview, not just one interview, but in the length of the interview. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who was really frustrated. He got the offer and he was taking the position, but he goes, yeah, it took him a month. And I was like, I'm going to tell you, a month in today's world actually isn't too bad. But I think as a high level salesperson, I said, the one thing you should take away from that is, think about how you felt in that process and what was going on outside of that. Now, when you're in a sales conversation with somebody else and it's taking them 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks to make a decision, what are the ways that you powerfully stay persistent without being aggressive? And I think those are skills that you really have to watch in the interview process. Can somebody wait 2 weeks for an answer? Can they wait 3 weeks if other things are going on? Mary Lynn, I don't know if you're seeing things like that too, but and Joseph, I'm sure you're seeing the same thing,
yeah. I mean, I'm curious, and I know this is a little off the topic, but I've been asked a lot about brand, employment brand, the brand positioning and value proposition that we're not only, able to provide our sales team or our our recruiting team on how to position our team or our company against the competition. So, how are you seeing those marketing skill sets sort of show up or be necessary? Mary Lynn, like from the recruiting standpoint, are you seeing more, need to understand how to position and actually sell in why it would be great to work for this organization as part of the recruiting process now, and having tools that are marketing-esque in the
Yeah,
process?
most definitely. I mean, I have never seen the bond between HR and marketing and communications and technology as tight as it is now, because human resource and recruiting teams have figured out if they want to be competitive, they have to go to market in a way that they present their employment brand effectively through their website, social media channels, advertising, depending on, again, the budget of the organization, the geographical reach. So it's become much more top of mind, and more resources are being utilized to ensure that organizations are putting their best foot forward digitally, so that candidates can learn about the organization well before the interview process, and potentially even create a pipeline of applicants who are intrigued and interested in the organization as an employer. And that's complementary with the overall brand of the organization. So that connection between employment brand and brand generally needs to be in sync and tight. And years ago, I don't think human resources worried their pretty little heads much about this topic. There was a disconnect or a lack of visibility about how important that connection was. But candidates now are doing the evaluations even before they apply, but certainly once they've applied. And if your online presence and your employment brand isn't strong, you're going to lose good candidates and not even have the opportunity to interview them. So, more important than ever. And there's more opportunities to improve your capabilities in this area at your organization's fingertips. Again, I had big budget certainly helps, but you can also, I've seen small companies do it on a shoestring and do a great job of it.
I
This
think to
little
back
thing,
up what you're saying, it's interesting. We'll see so many people. One of the first things they'll say is, I looked at you guys on Glassdoor. I wanted to see what your employees were saying. I checked out people that work for you. I looked at their Facebook pages to see if they're proud of where they work. And that makes a difference.
Yeah, and when we've audited businesses, even if we're talking about lead generation, if their Glassdoor reviews show up first in a search, which a lot of larger organizations that have a lot of reviews do show up on that first page, that can have impact on sales too. So it's a very big net that you have to cast with your brand. And I agree with you, Marilyn. It's your employment value proposition or your employment brand is not drastically different than how you would position yourself as to leads or prospects. It's just, it needs to be resonant with employees and resonant with people that are in the recruiting process. So making sure you're just tweaking that message so it puts that value to them as a potential candidate or an employee. And I do feel like sometimes too, we're losing the opportunity because, just like you'd onboard a client and have that experience mapped out, your onboarding experience should be more than like running through the handbook in terms of how to get the team engaged with your brand and engaged with who you are and the types of clients you work with and just feel really empowered and proud of the organization they've decided to join. So thank you for answering those questions. So Tom, just to kind of switch gears a little bit more and start to talk a bit more about sales per se, what are some of the top challenges that you are seeing that our sales teams are facing today?
Well, I mean, definitely, we talked about leads earlier. I think the other challenge is, the way we've done things in the past does not give us the results that we need. And there are all these great new tools out there, almost an abundance of new tools. And what do I use? How do I use it? And what? And it seems like every 6 months you've got to adapt and learn and be willing to try something else. And it can be really easy to say, well, that's a generational thing. The more you get into the boomers and everything, but I see it at every generation.
Right.
We get set in the way that we do things, and then we are very unwilling to practice those skills. And one of the I think one of the most frustrating things as a sales coach is if I ask teams, where do you practice these skills? Most of them say, well, we do it on the field of play. It would be, well, and I do think maybe this is how the Bears, this is why they're 3-7. But, if you did that in a professional sport, you would fail every single time. That's why sports spend, a football team spends 6 days practicing for the 3 hours on the field of play. And I think you've got to be willing in terms of the challenge. One of the biggest challenges is how do I get my sales team to adapt to new technology, the new needs of communication. We see a lot of people still really struggling with it. Logically, they get it, but they're still struggling with, okay, now how do I make that happen? And leaders, we go by a mantra. You got to tell them, show them, watch them, and coach them. And most leaders tell really well, and they confuse coaching with telling. And they forget watching and showing, right? They forget showing and watching because
Yes.
you have to model that behavior. Even if you're not any good at it, you have to at least be able to model the behavior so that the employee can feel it. And so, like, I get frustrated with leaders who will go, well, I don't know why my team's not on CRM. I don't know why they're not using our AI or they're not doing this. And I go, well, are you on it? And they go, well, I mean, that's not that important. And you go, well, no, it is really important because you've got to be able to model that behavior. And so I think that's not only the challenge for salespeople, but it's the challenge for sales organizations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. It's even impact there as we talked about, and we're going to dive into a little bit more around technology. There is just infinite choice of technology. So not even, understanding whether candidates are coming into the sales process or any candidates coming into your organization if they're a digital native, and then do they have really the knowledge on the platforms you use every day. I mean, I think even for ourselves, we just, hey, you're in your 20s, you've been using technology all your life. Of course, you're going to adapt to the Google workspace, really easy. Well, that's not always accurate. If somebody's never used a certain, group of technology, they're going to require a little more coaching and onboarding on those tools and then how they use them for that role. So they might have.
You might have to coach one of those people on how to have an in-person conversation.
Right.
How to
Exactly.
actually go in and meet somebody face to face.
Exactly.
And so it's an interesting dichotomy, right?
Right. Just even understanding not only people's, technical aptitude for the role, but how does it play a factor in how you collaborate as a team in your own organization. So
I saw the head of one of the executive vice presidents of Grainger. I saw him speak at an event a few years ago. And he talked about one of the things they do is they do a thing called reverse mentorship. So mentorship is typically we attach, a boomer to somebody who joins the organization. They do it in the opposite way. And I think it's beautiful. You take somebody you've just hired and they help me how to figure out my TikTok videos or my Instagram feed, whatever that looks like. And they feel like they're adding value immediately. And there's a place of we start aligning outcomes that we want to have.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea and pretty easy to do if you've got multi-generations in your workforce. So let's, as we're starting to head down the conversation around technology, Joe, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what are businesses investing in terms of HR workflows? What platforms should we all have as, the baseline in our organizations, and then maybe some new technologies that we should be thinking about adding to the roadmap?
Well, the first thing that employees don't see, but they feel, it's really the candidates that feel it, is an applicant tracking process.
Sure.
If you know that you're going to have a velocity, that's a great way to hold accountability to the people that are working through that process. You could see where the workflow gets stuck. You could see that you have candidates that are not being processed and communicated with in a timely fashion. So even for a small business, an ATS or an applicant tracking process or system, ATS, would be useful to at least look at and decide to say no to. You don't have to spend a fortune to do it.
No,
the second thing is
affordable now.
Yeah, now
They're
they're
pretty
pretty affordable.
affordable now.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be an Excel spreadsheet. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a real ATS that
Absolutely.
you're really going to use, and you're going to hold yourself accountable to use it and listen to the warnings that come back out about length of time and all of those things. You're going to look at that dashboard. The second thing is a true HRIS, an HR information system platform. The reason is employees need access to the components of their relationship with the employer. Again, it doesn't have to be a large or expensive investment for not a lot of money. You can get a good HRIS, but that's a great place. Again, I keep coming back to accountability because accountability gives people the expectation and it's clear. You can put their job description there so that it's right there. They can't miss it. It's right there. You can use your HRIS to do performance management. You can use it to track the good things. You can have a 360 where peers can give high fives and compliments, and it goes into the same place. Use the technology to bring people together and don't use it just as a management tool. When you do that, you're losing the opportunity for value to engage employees. You need to use every tool possible. And one of them, strangely enough to some people, is the the old payroll system is now the new HRIS engagement system. That's where they can get shopping discounts. That's where
Mm.
they can they can communicate with one another as peers, peer-to-peer communications. And the last thing I'd like to mention is, please, for goodness sake, install a good CRM. It's not just for salespeople. It's for treat your clients like humans and treat their companies like gold. So the only way to do that, we need to know more about our clients and prospects than they know about us. Think about what I just said. We need to know more about them than they know about us. So I can't have my salespeople knowing one thing and my service people having a different experience with that same client, even if it's different contacts at the client. That CRM has to have a view into what's happening on service, the complaint tickets, the issues. Please don't hide it from your salespeople because when you do, they find out, and is the most devastating thing when a salesperson encounters a complaint that they didn't know was an issue at the company until their prospect told them about it. I was
And then
mentoring an
how
early
and then
in
how
their
bad they
career.
look. The salesperson looks horrible when
Right.
they're not even aware that that
Right.
issue was out there. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And that will get people to leave the job. So I was mentoring a person early in her career, and she discovered these challenges because prospects were telling her that you guys have a terrible reputation about service. Sure, if I don't have a problem, everything's great. But the minute I do, I never get a call back. So she
Oh my
started
God.
investigating it. And in fact, it was true. And it was being hidden from the sales team. That's not the way to operate. That's
Oh my God.
destroying the trust bond between sales and service. You've got to acknowledge a challenge, tell people you're working on it so that we have a talk track ready to go if we have to defend that.
I agree. We did get a question, and it's sort of sales related. So, Tom, I'll let you see if you can take this, and anybody else can add in. So, how do you suggest getting the customer's input on how their needs and journey has changed, so your sales and marketing team can meet them where they are in 2023? I think looking at how do we get prospect input into improving our lead gen funnel experience.
I don't want to make this sound easier than it is, but ask them. That would be. I'm going to tell you. I can't tell you how many organizations I work with, and if you think about the 80-20 rule, the 90-10 rule, 20% of your customers give you 80% of your business. Ask your top customers. Sit down and have a actual strategic planning conversation with them. This is a perfect time to do it. The next 6 weeks. Where are you looking to go in 2023? What
Right.
are the things that need to change? What are the impacts? Help me understand it and try to get a few key people in that organization. Maybe get a person or two who's even a higher level person than the one you're dealing with and see if you can have a strategic conversation. How can we be a better partner for you? But the only way for me to do that I don't want to sell you anything. I just want to understand where your organization is trying to grow to and why and how you need to get there. And let's see if we can help you with that. But
Yeah.
so many companies don't even ask. They don't even have that conversation.
It is such a lost opportunity, and even extremely valuable when you can get prospect feedback. So even talking to lost, if you lose business, really maybe not the direct salesperson, but somebody above them that could go in and just do some inquiry around why they chose somebody else. I think we do fail. I mean, I love surveys, but we do fail to sometimes just get that that one-on-one interview conversation going. We do that in a lot of our early strategy work because there is nothing that tells the story better than the customer experience, and being able to marry that up with what the internal team thinks the customer experience is, and make sure that they're lined up. A lot of times they are, in some places, and really wide gaps in others. So
And the difference as an organization, especially a sales organization, the difference, if I know where you need to be 12 months, 18 months from now, I can be thinking about your business in a completely different place than just reacting to what you're doing today.
Yeah, and so I'm going to flip that question and wondered if, Mary Lynn, is there anything that you guys have done to better understand the candidate experience? Is there any tips that you might share that would give us thoughts on how you might talk about candidates that were either passed over beyond just looking at Glassdoor reviews and some of that online feedback? What else could we be doing to better understand how we're doing as recruiters?
So I'm going to use Tom's line, ask people, ask them, right? So if you can get people who choose not to accept an offer from you, if you can keep the lines of communication open and ask them why they chose to either stay with their current employer, which many candidates are doing, kept interviewing between the time they accepted your offer and started at your organization, another unpleasant trend that's becoming more common in today's marketplace. So keeping lines of communication open and learning why candidates aren't accepting your offers. And then that kind of goes beyond just candidates, but then also exit interviews, right? If someone does start and is leaving, I mean, any way that you can get direct information. I mean, Glassdoor and these sites are one place, but even better yet is the opportunity to interact. And sometimes, right when people are exiting or have just made the decision, they might not be willing to share the authentic reason that they've made the choice they have. But it's not that hard to reach out 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, especially if it's a candidate you're super interested in. Keep the lines of communication open. A lot of people are finding the grass isn't necessarily greener. And this applies to people that have been long-term employees that are leaving you, who might be great opportunities for boomerang, people coming back to work for you. We've had some great success with our members, helping them stay connected to people who are sad that they lost. So just
Yeah,
ask.
yeah.
Attribute that to Tom.
I've gotten some of my best nuggets to improve our employee experience just from former employees that would tell me, what they're finding value in their new employment experience, and it's been such easy things to initiate in my organization. So even if they're not returning, just to be able to get some feedback as to what we could do differently as as an organization that they're getting from this new group. So
Mhm.
And Mary Lynn, if I could just ask, and Mary
sure.
Lynn and Joe, and at least I'm seeing it from the sales standpoint. I think the other piece that's really important here is the leaders or the managers have to go into that conversation in a non-defensive mode. Are you guys seeing that also? Like they have to really want to learn because they may hear some things that are going to force them to think about the way that they're coming across or that their department or their organization is. And it can be challenging for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I think
Tom,
we
oh,
find that
sorry.
anonymity that that with
Yeah.
our clients that you were able to go in and really hear things that they wouldn't hear. They
They wouldn't
wouldn't.
tell their own people. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, having that third party sort of be a part of the interview structure, I think can be very valuable as well. Sorry, go ahead, Marilyn. What did you want
No
to add?
worries. I was just going to add that either a third party, great point, Kathy, but sometimes not their manager or supervisor, but someone else in the organization is going to get more direct feedback and also have less of a chance to be defensive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times someone's not going to tell their manager or supervisor, I hated working for you. You're a miserable boss, fill in the blank. But they might be willing to tell someone else in the organization, or more likely, even yet, to tell someone from another organization, a partner, the honest truth. And they might not be willing to reveal it right away. And I love Kathy's approach. Sometimes they still won't give you it directly, but by asking what do they like better at their new employer, or what did the new employer have to offer, listen closely and you'll find out what it is they were leaving at
Right.
your organization.
Exactly. So I want to kind of wind us up with giving you guys all an opportunity to tell us the one thing, maybe even add in a little bit about technology because we didn't get as deep in. So what would be the one thing that you'd want to advise a leader to think about, put in their roadmap, put in their strategy for 2023? Joe, can you kick us off and tell us one-ish thing that you think is it
I'll
should be
just go back
Ish.
to my favorite A word, accountability. Think about that word, use it in your leadership team meetings, figure out how to weave that into every conversation with relationships with employees and with your clients. How are we being accountable? And then how do we know we're being accountable? How do we measure it? And there's a way to do it. So just stick with that simple fact. Everybody's going to do a little bit better because everybody knows we're now watching and we
right?
have to think about it and respond to how we're participating in that.
All right, Tom, what's on your mind? What do you think?
I would go an A word also, authenticity. I think that's a space of one. I think today is calling for everybody to be aware of where their strengths are, but also the areas that they need to improve and shore up, and be okay with that and be authentic about it. You're not hiding it. The more you are open, your people know that you're not very good at this skill. Just acknowledge it and be open to it, and be okay with going. That's a muscle I got to exercise. I'm not very good at that. Can somebody help me with that? We do. We've been. You think about TikTok. I can't tell you how many people I'm talking to now that, oh, I never be on TikTok. And you go, yeah, I get that, but there's a whole world that's happening. And if you're not willing to be authentic about even something like that, CRM, any of these technologies, you have to be able to embrace and be authentic about where you are and how you need help, because people in your organization want to help you. So,
Yeah, Tom, I would just share that two candidates in my last recruiting round for graphic designers got freelance opportunities through TikTok. So
yeah,
there's
yeah.
leads. If you're looking to generate leads, it is a venue of opportunity. So Marilyn, what's on your thoughts for
Well,
2020?
I feel like I need to pick an A word, so
Right?
I'm going to
A lot
add
of
an
pressure.
A word. I'm going to add an A word to my L word, which was listen. So listen to your customers, listen to your candidates, listen to your employees, listen to your competition. And listening can take a lot of forms, not just your ears, your eyes, read, benchmark, you know, surveys, database. I mean, there's all different ways to be listened, but I'll add active to that. Actively listen. Listen in real time, listen regularly, but actively listen. Don't just passively listen, and absorb what you're hearing, analyze what you're hearing, and determine how it's going to impact your business and what sort of decisions should come as a result of what you're learning.
I want to just I think what you said is so present. Today's employee wants to be heard. And
Mhm.
if you passively listen, they know you're not listening to them. You have to exercise that muscle, and they will call you out on it today. They'll leave you today if you're not good at it. Mary Lynn, I think you nailed it. It's
Mhm.
a huge issue.
Well, you guys set me up. It was easy. It was a,
Spiked it.
softball. You threw me a softball.
All
That's
right. Well,
what.
I'm going to divert and say the T word. I really feel like if business leaders aren't thinking about their technology roadmap, and there was a lot of good technologies that were mentioned today, as CRMs and applicant tracking systems and HRIS and marketing automation wasn't mentioned, but oh my gosh, we are going to have to digitally enable ourselves from the recruiting standpoint and the sales standpoint, and it's only going to get harder and harder. And so if you haven't invested in those types of tools in your organization, next year is the year. You got to do it. And it's not something you have to do overnight. There is an ability to create a roadmap, but technology really just accelerates everything we're doing. And people are expecting us to move at the speed of seconds, and that's the only way you can do it, is if you have technology to help enhance yours. So I knew it was going to go quickly. This was so fabulous. I'm sure, as we always could, talk for another hour or two. So I appreciate you all joining me today. Let's show everyone how they can get a hold of each one of you. If they've got any additional questions, they can reach out to you. Parker, if you go back one slide, we can give the contact information. I want to just thank you all. Number one, you've supported us all year with your sponsorship. It has been such a pleasure to work with all of you and get the word out and help business leaders with the things that are challenging them. And we've just been able to share some really great thoughts and your expertise. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise today. You can reach out to Tom, Mary Lynn, or Joe through their LinkedIn or their emails, and please put business as unusual in a subject line so they know that they're coming from our webinar series. And then I will just sort of take a moment to talk about what is happening in December. We are wrapping up the year with a special year-end edition of Business as Unusual on December 15th. And we're going to talk about sales and what you should be thinking about in this more recessionary environment about your sales team. We are going to be featuring one of our own, Janet Vian, our Chief Strategy Officer, and she's going to talk about how companies can see their customer journey differently and how to really align your marketing and sales strategies to meet their expectation. She'll talk about how to identify which campaigns, that marketing channels that deserve your discretionary budget, because I know people are going to be more mindful about where they're spending next year. So, and we'll also review the importance of reinforcing your brand trust and using audience-centric content to build loyalty. So really important. I would also say that's really important in your recruiting process as well as sales. So we hope you will join us for that session on December 15th. And I, again, want to thank our guests today, Tom, Joe, and Mary Lynn. Thank you so much for joining us. We really value your partnership and your expertise. And thank you to our guests for attending.
This was great. Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Terrific.
Kathy.
Thank you.